Arena! Hey, Chris in the house with another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today, guys, I am going to explain to you one of the most important mechanics of the game. Something that I never saw anybody explaining, but the amount of importance this has in our gameplay, it's unbelievable. You're gonna notice after you get to know more in depth how that works, how important this mechanic is. And what I'm talking about this AoE. You must have read this word a lot, listen to that sound a lot. And what does that mean? AoE means area of effect. It is something that when you use, it can be a skill, a passive, a effect, a damage, anything, a debuff, anything. If affect an individual target, it is a single target skill. If it affects multiple targets, but you don't choose them, or is not all the targets, is a predetermined number of targets. For example, 2 random targets, it is a random target skill. And if it affects all the targets, it is an area of effect skill. And that's what we are going to discuss today. This is one of the most common and impactful mechanic of the game, and most of the players I've been noticing that doesn't know how it works. That being said, I'm going to explain every little detail, give you examples, and tell you why this is so important. Let's go here for the practical showcase. Let me find a team here. Okay, this one. Let me align that with you. Do you know our base is here, don't you? When she uses a turn meat buff here, the skills are going to be used on this order. First, she fills the turn meter of all allies by 30%. So her turn meter is filled, the second champion has the turn meter filled, the third champion has the turn meter filled, the fourth champion has the turn meter filled. Then she places a 50% increased attack buff on all champions. The first champion has increased ally placed on them. The second champion has increased attack placed on them. The third champion and the fourth champion. Then she puts a 50% increase buff accuracy on all allies. The first champion, the second champion, the third champion, the fourth champion. That's the order that the things happens. This is how the AoE buffs work. And which is this order? This is the order. When you see a team and you're using a skill or any mechanic, this is the order that is going to be used on your team or on the enemy team. The leading champion, this spot here, is the first champion to receive the action. This spot here is the second champion to receive the action. This spot here is the third champion to receive the action. And this spot here is the fourth champion to receive the action. That's really important because this is the first champion to receive the action. This is the second champion to receive the action. This is the third champion to receive the action. This is the fourth champion to receive the action. When you start the match, is not the way they are displayed in game. Do you see? The first champion here, if you follow this order here on the game, this is not the first champion. The sister militant here is not the first champion. You know, our base is our first champion. The sister militants are the second and the third champion. And she is the last champion. Nianhe is the last champion we have here. So, knowing that, you know the order of propagation of the skills. The same here. It's neither Stautus is the first, second, third, fourth. Neither Tormi is the first, second, third, fourth. The order that you see the champions here displaced on this battle is not the order that the skill is going to pursue. No, the order that the skill is going to pursue is the order that you settle the champions. So let me move myself here for you to take a look here. If you go to the info button here, this is the order the champions are displaced. So you know my first champion is my R base, so this is the first position. You know my second champion is the sister militant with the block damage not protected, so this is the second position. You know my third champion, it is the sister militant with the protected block buffs, so this is the third champion. And you know that my last champion is Nianhe, so she is the fourth champion. If I do our base skills here, the turn meet buff, like I told ya, the skill order is going to be that. Fuse the turn meter of all eyes by 30%. So, when she uses this skill, the first thing she's going to do is to feel her turn meter, then feel her turn meter, then you're going to feel her turn meter, then you're going to feel her turn meter. Then, after that, she's going to place 50% increase attack in all champions. So she's going to put increase attack on her, increase attack on this one, increase attack on this one, and increase attack on this one. After that, she's going to put increase accuracy on the first champion, that is her, on the second champion, on the third champion, on the fourth champion. Why I'm explaining all of this? Do you see there is a Torment on the other side? The Torment also has a passive that is an AoE effect. So, knowing how that works, if you increase turn meter or you buff your champions, you can activate Torment Freeze. And that's really important, because if you know what you're going to do, you know how it's going to work. So, let me show you an example of how the area of effect and how it works is really important. I'm going to use her skill here. Do you see that everybody got all the buffs? She got the turn meter, she got the 2 buffs. She got the turn meter, she got the 2 buffs. She got the turn meter, she got the 2 buffs. She got the turn meter, the Nianhe got the turn meter, and she got the 2 buffs. Everything worked here, because the only champion that freezed it was this sister militant. Let me restart this battle. I'm going to restart it, and I'm going to execute the same action. So I restarted the battle, and I'm going here to execute the same action. I'm going to buff with her base. Do you see that she froze now? Do you know what that means and how that worked? She turn meet boosted herself. She turn meted boosted her. She turn meted boosted her. She turn meted boosted her. After that, she freezes. So, when she freezed, and the second sister here also freezed, she was unable to do the other things that her action did. So she boosted everybody. It was the first action. She boosted herself, the first one, the second one, the third one. That was the first action in this order. Then she freezes because of this turn meet boost. So nobody received the increase attack. Nobody received the increase critical, the increase accuracy. Nobody received the buffs, because after the first area of effect buffs, she received a crowd control. So she buffed everybody by the turn meeting boosting, and she freezes. Then nobody gets the second part of her skills, that is to increase everybody's attack. And nobody got the third part of her skill, that is increase everybody's accuracy. Because as effect of the first thing she did, she got a crowd control on her. So knowing that, you know that the turn meet propagation, the buff propagation during an AoE effect works this way. You know, so you have the first information about AoE. They can be concealed in the middle of the action. So when you use a skew, it's not guaranteed that all the skew is going to be done. You can suffer a crowd control in the middle of it, and it's going to stop. And this is really important, because you see that our base here, it is freezed, and the second champion here, it is freezed. Let's imagine that, for example, on the second champion, we had, instead of the sister militant here, a champion that had polymorph. And this champion was going to activate the polymorph. So the Torment freezed her. The Torment freezed the second champion. Let's say the Torment was going to freeze also this third and this fourth champion, because all of them received the turn meet boosting. But if the second champion had a polymorph, and the Torment polymorphed when he attempted to freeze the second champion, these two champions would not be freezed, even if the Torment tried to freeze them, because the Torment would be crowd controlled by the polymorph in the middle of the action of freezing. Let's say I have all my champions with polymorph here, and I'm going to move our base to the last position. And I'm going to repeat. I'm going to start the battle, and I'm going to buff with our base. Do you see what happened? Our base buffed. Everybody received a turn meter. Our base buffed the attack. Everybody received the attack. Our base buffed the increased accuracy. The first champion received it. Okay, the Torment froze it, and it was froze. The second champion received it, the Ursuga. It procced her polymorph. So the Torment was CC'd. These two champions could be freezed the same way the first two were freezed, you know? But since the polymorph of the second champion procced, the Torment couldn't freeze the other two. Even if he was able to, he wouldn't freeze because he was crowd controlled on the second champion that he attempted to freeze due to the polymorph. This is really important. Really important. Knowing that the skews happens in the order it says on the test. And the effect of the crowd controls and the passives and everything on every champion works accordingly to the order the champions are disposed in the match. You can make strategies around it. You know, so we had an action to turn mid boost, a reaction, the effect of the Torment passive, both AoE effects, and the order it propagates is this one. So here you have the first thing about AoE. It goes in this order here. So the first champion, it is Herbise. The second champion is this freezed sister militant. The third champion, it is the non-freezed sister militant. And the fourth champion, it is Nianhe here. On the other team, the enemy team, the first champion is the Wukong. The second team champion is the Sifi. The third champion is the Tormin. And the fourth champion is the Stautus. This is the right order of the champions, and this is how and propagates. This is really, really, really important. Easy conclusions that everybody should know. Let's talk about them. Easy conclusions. If you watch me playing livearena many times, you know that I love to start with the Marius and the Galatir, and you saw me doing that first pick many times during livearena, and I always do the first pick, then I'm go, oh, I need to change it, and I take them two and put them back in this order. Do you know why I do that many times? Because I will only select the aura on livearena when every champion is selected. So why I always pick the Marius, the Galatir, and I remember that I need to change, and I take them two and I pick them again in a different order. because I want the Galatir that has polymorph as blessing to be the first champion of the team. I want polymorph blessings to be always on the first spots of the team. I want them to be the first to be affected by debuffs or attempts of removing buffs from us to proc the effect sooner. And my other champions, if the first champion has a polymorph and it procs, the second, the third, and the fourth champion won't be affected by the effect of the skill because the champion is crowd controlled. You know, so let's say my Galatir was going to use a skill here and it polymorphed the Tormin, so my horse, my Arbase, and my Commodus won't be affected by the Tormin freeze. So, first thing you need to know, if you have polymorph blessings, you want the polymorph blessings to be on the first slots of the team. Then you're going to put the other champions on the other slots. So the first and the second slot. If you have polymorphs, the sooner the polymorph champions are on the team, when the polymorph blessing procs, the champions after it won't be affected if it's an area of effect skill or passive or effect. This is extremely important. This is extremely important because you can counter mechanics using the order of your champions. If I had the Galatir and him in the last spots here, and I use the skill that affect my whole team, the first two would always be freezed if they were going to be freezed, because only the last two would be able to proc the polymorph into the Tormin. So the first two champions would always be freezed if they were going to be freezed, you know? And I had nothing to counter that, which I could easily mitigate if I just changed the order. Because if the proc of one of these polymorphs happens, these other two champions would always be protected, because the Torment wouldn't be able to execute the action into them. Small details that makes a lot of difference. The amount of battles that you can win knowing this is the order of the things that happens. For example, if I use my Galatir here against this team, I'm going to use my Galatir here against this team. Let's say he has enough accuracy. It's not a 6-star polymorph, so I have a lot of resistance on my Galatir, so probably, unless it's a 3%, he's not going to lock me. But let's say I change form of my Galatir, and I use the A2 of my Galatir. The A2 of my Galatir has as effect, let me show you, attack all enemies. Before attacking, remove all buffs from all enemies. So he's going to remove Sifi's buff. Sorry, he's going to remove Wukong's buff. Then he's going to remove Sifi's buff. Then he's going to remove Tormin's buff. Then he's going to remove the Stautus buff. After that, he's going to place block active skills debuff for 2 turns. So he's going to place on Wukong, on Sifi second, then on Tormin. Let's say his Tormin's going to proc the polymorph. Always the Wukong and the Sifi are going to be a red affected by my skill. So they would always be blocked here. If I use my A2, always they would be blocked. Always. Because there is no way the polymorph could affect me before this effect. But let's say that Tormin was the second champion here. He wants to use the Wukong Aura, okay. But he put the Tormin in the second spot instead of the Sifi. So every time this polymorph procced, the Sifi and the Stautus, that were the 3 and the 4th position, won't be affected by my skill. So I used my skill here. He procced the polymorph, but he didn't have enough accuracy. If he had enough accuracy, these Stautus that were locked here by my skill won't be affected, because my Galatir would be transformed into ship on the Tormin, and the Stautus won't be affected by the skill. Let me see if I find a team here that has a 6-star polymorph for us to try that. Perfect. Let me see if I'm faster than him. Let's go in to try that. I'm going to transform. And I'm going to use my A2. Do you see? I was polymorphed. On the second champion. So, on the second champion, I was polymorphed. Knowing how AoE works, you see that I was polymorphed on the second champion here, on the Narcissus. I removed the stone skin of the horse, so he would be affected by the block active skills of my Galatir if I wasn't turned into sheep because of the Narcissus. If the Narcissus was here positioned in the last spot, this horse would be locked. But since he got the polymorph blessing positioned in the early spots of the team, he did it right. The champion that are after him, since I got polymorphed during my area of effect debuff skill, wasn't affected by it. So, if this Narcissus and the horse were changing positions here, the horse would be locked right now. As you can see, he's without the stone skin because the first part of my skill removed it. So he would be locked. He would have block active skills on him if it wasn't for the polymorph here and how the area of effect works. Do you know this is the right usage of the mechanic? He has the polymorph blessing soon on his team, so he can take advantage of it and protect the champions that goes after him. Knowing that is extremely important. He can win this battle because of the small detail, because the champions were in different order. This horse that could only use A1 if he was locked, now he's going to be able to do his action and kill me. Like, kill my whole team. Let me A1 here. Okay, he did his action. He did his action, he killed my whole team. That's a small detail. That's a positioning of champions that made the total difference on this battle. That's knowing how area of effect works and how important it is. There is a lot to explore about these mechanics. A lot. Now that you know how the area of effect works and how important it is, there are so many things that you can use it to explore and make strategies around it. The more you know about your champion's mechanics, the more you can explore how the area of effect works. Because it affects everything. It affects debuffs, it affects damage, it affects passives, it affects everything in the game. Everything. Let's go here for practical examples. Galatir. On the first form, he has a passive. The active part of his passive prevents the champion death and keeps them alive with 1 HP when receiving a fatal damage, then equalize their HP. The HP levels of the champion will be brought up to the average HP level of the team. So, knowing that he has a passive that prevents him death and equalizes HP by doing it, what do you want the champion to be here? For example, if I have like 3 champions here and they are going to be killed, it's let's say this Wukong is doing an AoE and all these champions are going to be killed. The Galatir survives and he equalizes the HP. If all the champions are dead, if all the champions already lost their HP and they're dead, he's going to equalize his HP with nobody. and he's going to just have 1 HP after the damage of the wave. But let's say I got a Toparena here with Stone Skin, you know, and the same thing happens. He uses our area of effect damage, it kills my champion, boom, boom, they're dead. And my Galateer is affected, he survives, then he equalizes the HP. The damage effects in the order of the champions are placed, so he will be killed, 0 HP. He will be killed, 0 HP. He will suffer the damage, 1 HP, equalizes HP. She has 100% HP. So when he equalizes the HP, she has as parameter 100% of HP here. You know? So having Galateer sooner in your team for him to have parameters to equalize HP when he's on your team is good for you. Area of effect of the damage. The damage propagates in this order: first champion, second champion, third champion, fourth champion. Knowing that you can take advantage of Galateer's passive, knowing how it works. This is game experience based on how you know area of effect works. Another example for you to use as a strategy. Another thing, I'm going to give you examples here. Let me find this champion here. Okay, a team. Do you know how Nianhe works? In the start of the match, Nianhe places block damage. It's her passive. Block damage buff on all allies for 1 turn at the start of the round. Each time the champion loses, and each time the champion loses half of the HP. Okay. Knowing that, can you figure out in your mind how important it's where you place Nianhe on your champion selection? By knowing that passive, can't you figure out how important is the placement of Nianhe for you? Let's use here as an example. Nianhe is going to be last champion here. Brotos is going to be first champion. Let's start the battle. In the start of the battle, both are protected by Nianhe's passive. You know, everybody here has the block damage. Okay, I'm going to do Nianhe's action here. Use a skill on her. Normal, they are having their turns. Okay. I don't want my Rotos to do nothing, so I'm going to just use his A1 here to waste it. And he damages me. Do you see that my Rotos took that damage? Nianhe was killed and Rotos took the damage. Do you see here? He has half of his HP took by the skill of the Narcissus. If it was a strong Narcissus, my whole team would be killed. It is a weak Narcissus, so my team wasn't killed. But if it was a strong one, my whole team would be killed. Let's say, with the same team, I just changed the order. Because I know how AoE damage works. I know how it works. I know how Nianhe passive works. Let's change the order. Let's do the same thing. Let's start with the A3. They're going to do their actions. No problem. They did their actions. Okay, I'm going to waste my Rotos A1 and he's going to damage me. Do you see my Rotos with full HP here this time? He doesn't lost a single 1 HP. What changed here? Can you explain me? I am going to explain to you. When the Narcissus used his skill in the first battle, Nianhe was the second champion. So, Rotos was affected by Narcissus' skill. He took the damage. He survived. Okay, miracle. He survived, but he lost his HP. Then, Nianhe, that was the second champion, was affected by the skill. She lost half of her HP. And procced her passive. She put block damage on everybody. You know? but she was killed by the skill. So Rotos survived miraculously with 30% of his HP, and then he receives the block damage. That was the result of the first battle. On the second battle, that I have Nianhe first, when Narcissus uses his AoE, he procs Nianhe passive. She's the first champion hit by the AoE, first champion on the team, first champion to be hit by the damage. She suffers the damage, she dies, but she procs her passive. So the whole team, after her, has the block damage after she's killed by the first hit. So nobody suffers no damage. Nobody suffer damage because they are all protected by her passive. This is knowledge about passives and how area of the effect works and how impactful to a battle that is. Let me bring a team here to show you again. Nianhe, last champion of the team. As you can see here, she's the last champion of the team. So, when Narcissus uses AoE, the first champion to be damaged by it is going to be Rotos, then Fina, then Incensa, then Nianhe. So, all my champions are going to be affected by the damage of the Narcissus before proccing Nianhe's passive. So, let me do this here. Let's test that in practice. He's going to do his action, he's going to do his action. Let me do my actions here just to let him does his action. Okay. Here it comes. He's going to do his damage. Do your damage, Narcissus. Boom! Half of my team is dead, and the other champions survived. Took a lot of damage. They survived just by how tanky they were or something like that. If that was a really strong Narcissus, the battle was going to be over. The battle was going to be totally over. You know? It is a weak Narcissus, but a red killed half of my team, and my champions almost lose all their HPs. But you know now how area of effect works. You know now how you can use your passives, your champions, the mechanics of the game in your favor. Because you know how the damage propagates. You know. Now you're going to fully explore the potential of your teams and the strategies that you're able to make. So let's see the same situation here. I just changed Nianhe from the last spot of the team to the first spot of the team. So it's the same team against the same enemy, but now Nianhe is my first champion here. And the Narcissus is going to do his AoE now. Boom! No champions of my team are killed. None of them. It's the same team against the same champions with the same gear. I just changed the position of one of the teams. One of the champions, sorry. That's how important knowing how area of effect works, knowing the passives and the effects of your champions, and how you can make a strategy around it. Nianhe is my first champion here, so she's the first to receive the damage. Narcissus uses his damage, or everybody's going to receive a hit. The first champion that is affected by the hit, Nianhe. Took her HP, procced her passive. Everybody gets block damage. So, she receives the damage, but she's with block damage. She receives the damage, but she's with block damage. He receives the damage, so he's with block damage. Dear friend from the first battle, my whole team is alive now. My whole team is alive. Just because I swapped the position of the champions and the area of the effect of the damage affected them differently, and the passives procced differently, and the result of the battle could be totally different. This is knowledge. This is something you can apply to your battles and take advantage of it. There are many infinite applications to that, Every champion has a kit, every champion has passive, debuffs, damage, and how you're going to explore them depends on you. I'm showing you some mechanics here that you can take advantage of it by knowing it. Another champion that is very common here. Let me show you another champion that has a great application of that. Embrace, on the second form. On his passive, he can reflect damage. Here, first part of the passive. When the champion dies, reflects damage equal to 50% of the damage of the fatal hit back to the attacker, include any surplus damage. Knowing how the area of effect works, and knowing that Ember is on the second form, he can reflect the damage that he suffers back to the attacker. Where are you going to position your Embrace? If you know that your Embrace can reflect the damage back to the attacker, put your Embrace always on the first positions. Because let's say these Narses attack him, and there are very weak champions behind him. Let me put my arm of Sister Militant here as an example. If my Embrace is my first champion here, and he suffers a very big damage, and he dies, and he's the first champion affected by this damage, he's going to suffer the damage, he's going to die. He's going to reflect the damage back to the attacker, and the attacker probably is going to die. So, the nuker kills me, and my Embrace passive kills him back. My whole team that would suffer the damage after that would be safe, because the nuker is killed by the AoE when he tried to kill my Embrace. If I used Embrace on the last position here, the AoE would kill the first champion, the second champion, the third champion, then it would affect Embrace. And by the time that my Embrace reflect back the damage to the attacker to kill him, my whole team already is dead. By knowing how the area of the effects and how it works, you can position the Embrace on the first positions, and you can take advantage of his reflect. There are so many uses of that. Let's say I have a Necret here. Do I have a Necret? Okay, knowing how AoE works, I have a Necret here. Am I going to put my Necret on the first positions? Let's say this Narcissus use his AoE. It's going to affect Embrace first, Necret second, Sister Militant as last position. So he will take the damage, he will die. He will take the damage, he will die. My Sister Militant, that should be protected by the Necret, will take the damage. Necret is already dead. She will die too. But if instead of that, we put our Necret on the last position, so the Narcissus is going to do his damage. He's going to suffer. Let's not use him as an example. Let's use him. The Darsduk is going to take the damage. He's going to die. My second champion is going to take the damage. The Nekmotor is going to die. My third champion, the Sister Militant, protected by the Necret, will take the damage. The Necret, it's with the ally protection, the shield, everything here to try to protect her. So, she will take the damage. The Necret is going to be there to help her to try to survive. Because he didn't receive the damage yet. He's still alive. So she has a chance of surviving. And then, after that, he suffers the damage. So, he can be dead, she will have the chance of trying to survive, because Necret is alive to protect her. He will only receive the damage after she already had received the damage. You know, so you want this champion to be in the last positions. Because you want to the target of his protection, his passives, his ally protection, everything, to suffer the damage when he's alive, for him to help you to survive. And that applies to champion that protects your team, you know? Let's say I have a Freya on my team. And the Freya passive can prevent the death of an ally with the highest critical damage except this champion, and keeps them alive with 1 HP when hit by a fatal hit. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, only one will activate. Then he used that ally with 20% of their max HP and activates an instant turn on them. Let's say I have here only 2 champions, my sister Militant and my Freya, and they're going to use the AoE. If the Freya is on a spot in the beginning and she's killed by something before she can proc the effect on my champion here, that would be bad. It's better to have Freya on the last spots, because when the AoE comes, the champion is going to be affected by the damage. It's going to proc Freya's passive. It's going to give her the instant turn before Freya is being affected by anything. You know? Let's say everybody's going to die here. The first champion is going to be affected by the damage. He's going to proc Freya's passive. It's going to give her the 1 HP, then the heal, then the instant turn, and then Freya can be killed. Okay? But if it's the other way around, let's say an AoE affects her first, takes her passive away, or something like that, before the champion that is going to be affected by her passive receives the AoE effect. So she's going to be nullified, and then when the champion receives the damage and the things, Freya is already nullified. So he's going to die too. But if Freya was in the last position, she could have saved the champion, because her passive would proc before. That's knowing how the area of effect works and take advantage of it. Nobody ever told me. I did not ever saw a video about it. So I want to share this kind of information with you, because knowing that, you can make strategies around it. You can win battles because of that. This is a knowledge every player should know, because you can explore it and win battles and make strategies and mechanics knowing how that works. Okay? This is area of effect. This is how it works. And I hope this video help you make new strategies and play around it with decent knowledge of how your champion works and how the mechanics of the game works. Remember, if you like this kind of content, don't forget to do this. And have in your mind,
It's all about arena.